Yonda pravishya mama vancham prasuptam sanjeevayadi akhila shakti dharasvadhamna anyamscha hasta charana sravanattvagadi pranam namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. So as you know, today's topic is approaching the divine as mother, the feminine face of God. If you look at the history of world religions and the history and evolution of the concept of God, you find that in the early days, people used to look upon nature as the reality, the external nature. It's called pantheism. The visible empirical world itself assumed the face of God. Then pantheism, which believed that there is an inherent spirit within everything. So pantheism, and then polytheism, where you believe, you conceive of different gods and goddesses operating behind the natural phenomena. And then we have henotheism, where individually you look upon your own idea of God as the supreme. Then monotheism, the idea of one divine reality. Now there is a gradual evolution in the concept of God, which also, in a way, is the evolution of the human perception and the human understanding of the absolute reality. But the most visible, the most intimate, and the most humane understanding of God is by conceiving him or her as a dear and near relative of ours. And there you can see the importance of the feminine divine archetype. See, in our own life, the nearest and dearest relative is mother. So in ancient India, you know, there used to be ancient Vedic schools called Gurukulas. In the hermitages, sages and hermits used to teach, impart Vedic instruction. And after 12 years of instruction, when the students departed, going back to their homes to play different roles in their family, husband, wife, mother, father, different roles when they had to play in the socio-family culture. They had to play, they had to be responsible, they had to look upon the human relation within family as something sacred and sanctified. So the idea of sacredness in family, in the institution of family, in the relationship between children and parents, and more importantly, unfortunately that's becoming very unpopular in modern times, the sanctity and sacredness of the institution of marriage. These were all intertwined with the idea of the divine archetype as the most sublime, as the nearest and dearest idea of Godhead. That's why when these students went back to their homes to start their life, these teachers used to give one convocation address. In fact, historically, the first convocation address is found in the Krishna Yajurveda, in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Vedamanu Chacharyo Antevasena Manishasti Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara Satyana Pramadidavyam Dharmana Pramadidavyam. It goes on, this is the beginning of the convocation address. After teaching the Vedas, the teacher instructs the students, you should practice truth, you should not deviate from truth. You should practice dharma, you should not deviate from the path of dharma. And then, more importantly, when it comes to family life, the first instruction is Matrudevo Bhava. In fact, that is the most important instruction in the entire convocation. This may be a total surprise to many. The first convocation address in an academic setting, given by a prominent academic addressing students who have just reached, in modern times, they got a degrees with 12 years of Vedic training, and then going back to their homes, he becomes well educated in the sense of ancient Vedic education. The first and the most important instruction is Matru Devo Bhava. Your mother should be as respectable, as honorable as God himself or Goddess herself. This is the meaning of the instruction. It continues Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo, Adidevo. I don't have time to go through the details. Shankaracharya has written a magnificent commentary on this, very famous commentary. And Anandagiri has taken a Tika, a super commentary, which is beyond our scope right now. So the first instruction and the most important instruction is Matru Devo Bhava. Now there was a great Vedic lawgiver called Manu. He has written a book called Manu Smriti, which in a way regulated the family culture. There are 18 such smritis, which are do's and don'ts, like constitutions, book of rules and regulations. In that book, he says, Upadhyaya Dashacharya Acharya tu Sadampida Sagasranadhigam Madhu Gauravena Atirichyade. It's a very well-known verse. These are all ancient treasures of humanity, not just Hinduism alone. What he says is, think of an academic institution where you have a guest lecturer, you are a professor who is the chairman, who is the head of the department of the particular area of learning, and then you have maybe the president of the university, and so on. Upadhyaya is a guest lecturer. Acharya is like a professor. Upadhyaya, Dashacharya, Acharya tu Sadampida. The respect that you give to your professor is 10 times the respect that you should give it guest lecturer. And the respect that you give to your father is 100 times as much as the respect that you give to your professor. And the reverence and respect that you attach, that you give to your mother is 1,000 times the respect that you give to your father. This is the Gauravena Adirichide. In terms of reverence and respectability, there is a ascent from a guest lecturer to mother. What it means is the most important and the person who deserves the highest respect and reverence in our life is mother. That's because the relationship between mother and children is not just a human relationship, it is a relationship, a spiritual kinship. And there is a sacredness and sanctity about that. If we can bring back this idea of sacredness and sanctity in the family relationship, many nations, many civilizations can be saved, because the basic unit of a civilization or culture or nation is the family itself. Now, in the tradition of worshipping God as the most sublime aspect of the divine, as the universal feminine divine archetype, what it says is the all-pervading divine energy is conceived to be manifesting in the mother. Don't ever imagine that a human being who eats food and walks and drives a car goes to Kaiser for treatment. A basic human being can be God. No, that is not the implication at all. Often there is a great misunderstanding among people about the image worship or about the idea of reverence or respect for a human spiritual archetype. The point is, the inseparable, that exalted spiritual kinship and the sanctity and sacredness that you attached, that attached to your relationship with your mother, is not just human. There is a spiritual aspect to that. So this mother is conceived to be the embodiment of the divine energy as God's omnipresence in the world. And this is the idea of looking upon mother, or let's say a goddess conceived to be the mother of the universe. It's called the Jagadhatri, God, the God, the feminine archetype. God conceived us to be as a goddess who preserves, supports, sustains this world, this universe. Jagat Janani, the one who gives birth and protection to the world. These are different ideas in ancient Sanskrit scriptures. So in Hindu tradition, there are many Vedic hymns and many spiritual poetical classics in which a devotee prays to God as the mother. Now, there are many which I can quote from, but one of the most important and well-known poetical classics is Shankaracharya. You remember, the greatest name in Indian philosophical tradition is Shankaracharya, Advaita, who taught us that God is beyond temples, churches, and places of worship. Even if you cannot go to a place of worship, cannot pray in a place of worship, if you sit in your own room, you meditate on the presence of the divine within you, you can become a spiritual person. He is the main archetype of this system of philosophy known as Advaita. Vedanta Society was founded by a great monk who came to this country, who brought this message in the 19th century, Swami Vivekananda. Now, that Shankaracharya, in one of his innumerable, altogether more than 100 poetical classics, he addresses God as the Divine Mother. Shiva Shaktiya Yukto Yadi Bhavadi Shakta Prabhavidum Nache Devam Devo Nakhalu Kushalas Panditumapi Adastuam Aradhyam Harihara Pivirinjadi Viravi Pranandum Sodum Va Katamagada Punya Prabhavadi. What it means is this: everything depends upon the divine energy, manifesting as the feminine archetype. Even Shiva. Shiva is one idea of masculine God in Hinduism. The Shiva temples are there. But Shiva himself, it is again a poetical work. You should not, it's a metaphor. So he says, even Shiva cannot move, cannot do anything without the support and without being accompanied by his divine consort. So God, remember, is a poetical classic. It is not a description of a God, but it is conceived to be that divine archetype, conceived as mother, is behind creation, behind existence, behind life of all human beings. And in his classical work, that is called Saundarya Lahari. The Lahari means wave of divine, sublime, spiritual beauty. That's a literal translation. He says, Bhavani Tvam Dase Mai Vidaradrishtim Sagarunam Idis Todum Vanchan Kathedi Bhavani Twamidiya Tadaiva Tvam Tasmai Dishasi Nijasayuja Padavi Mukunda Brahmendras Padamagudi Nirajada Padam. I'm not describing this verse literally, but I'm giving an example. And this great poet, towards the end of his work, he says, "O Mother, please have compassion on everyone. Everyone looks upon you as the mother of the universe, as the mother of all mothers. So by your compassion, by your blessings alone, human beings can live a life of contentment and happiness." In the Vedic tradition, there are many sublime hymns poetical works which extol God as the universal divine archetype. Devi Suktam, Durga Suktam, Medha Suktam, all these are there are innumerable. Some Suktams are found in different forms in Rigveda and also Yajurveda. Devi Suktam, Rigveda, Yajurveda. Then Durga Suktam and so on. And in many of these poetical classics, the Divine Mother is conceived to be the giver of wisdom, the giver of knowledge, the giver of wealth, and the giver of spiritual enlightenment. For example, that feminine archetype, the mother of the universe, is meditated upon in the morning as Gayatri, and in the midday as Savitri, and in the evening as Saraswati. So same divine archetype. So you have to remember, when you think of you have to remember, Hinduism or India had a very interesting, very fascinating and very mind-boggling history of religious philosophy. People belonging to no less than 27 entirely different language traditions. They can't understand each other. And each of these languages, apart from Sanskrit, of course, which is 6,000-7,000 years old, all these languages have a literary tradition going back more than 2,000 years. You have to remember, the modern English is only around 600 years old, King James Version of the Bible, 16th century. And before that, Middle English, Old English, and so on. But these Indian vernaculars, even the youngest of those vernaculars, have a history of more than 2,000 years. So people belonging to diverse cultural traditions, practices, different levels of cultural evolution, they used to live in different groups and communities, having their own way of approaching God. So that's why the same divine archetype, Mother, is worshipped as Gayatri in the morning. So Gayatri, also the name of a mantra, is also the name of a Vedic meter, 24 syllables meter. And again, the same Divine Mother, God, is worshipped as Savitri during midday and Saraswati during evening. One great scholar, I refer to his name, Shankaracharya, who is as I mentioned, the greatest name in Indian philosophical tradition, who founded 10 monastic orders, to one of which we also belong. All the monks, any monastic tradition that you find in America, coming from anywhere in India, so belong to one of the 10 monastic orders that he founded, philosophical books and so on, installed temples. What he did, he organized these ideas of God into 5 categories. It is called Panchadevata Puja. So if you go to these temples here, in Hindu temples, so if you are in Hindu temple here or outside India you find, they are all different manifestations of these 5 modes, 5 traditions of worshipping God. It's called Panchadevata Puja. Adityam Vigam Vishnum Gananatham Maheswaram Panja Yajna Paro Nityam Grihastha Pancha Puji. The divine archetype is conceived to be Shiva, Mother, then Son, and then of course Ganapati and Vishnu and so on. Now, again, sometimes in some of the Vedic mantras, if you read them, it's very interesting. At the beginning, the devotee prays to Divine Mother. Oh Mother, I am your child. Give me wisdom, give me wealth, but also give me the wisdom to make proper use of the wealth and learning that you bestow upon me. The devotee is praying for is for the fulfillment of his everyday needs. Even if you go to many of the Hindu temples here, you find people paying $50 or $10, $20 to the priest, and the priest will ask you, what are you praying for? And the priest will utter some mantra. Well, I'm not going deep into those areas, but the point is, these mantras, if you translate in English, it means, let this devotee who is praying to you, maybe to get a job, to become a little wealthier, or to make sure that his children do good grades, high grades in schools. They are all praying for the fulfillment of different material needs. Please bless them with that. But many of the Vedic mantras, they begin with this kind of prayers, and then eventually, after praying all this, the devotee prays, Mother, give me wealth, wisdom, knowledge, everything, but also give me the spiritual wisdom to make proper use of what you are giving me. You give me wealth, fine, you got to educate your children, take care of family, a good job, okay, fine, and everything. But then also give me the wisdom to make proper use of what you are bestowing upon me. So the prayer begins first with the prayer for the fulfillment of material needs, and then a prayer for spiritual wisdom that will help you to make proper use of the prosperity and learning and power that you may get by the grace of God, and to resist the temptation to make improper use of what you have achieved. These are very, very interesting things. Now, of course, I'm right now going to say a few things about this puja, the Saraswati puja that is coming. We will have called Saraswati puja in some places, Durga puja, and so on. So we will have, of course, Durga puja next Saturday, 27th of September. Now, you can find this, the worship is done to Durga. The same Durga is called Kali, Saraswati, and so on. And then this worship is normally performed during the autumn season in India. It's called Sharad Kala. Sharad means autumn season. Maybe you have different name by which you call it. So in Indian tradition, because these ideas of worshipping God as the Divine Mother, it had its own different forms in other cultures also, but I'm focusing on the Hindu tradition. So the Divine Mother, the most important public celebration of worshipping Divine Mother in a big way, in a very pompous way, so to speak, as a big celebration, and the government declares holidays during that season, is called the worship of autumn season. So, and there are two definitions by which this is known. One, and a very important name that is given to the Divine Mother is Sharada. Now, if you look at Holy Mother's life, you find, if you go to the bookstore, you find Sarada. It is called Sarada, and in some traditions, it is spelled as Sharada. So, Sarada and Sharada. Now, Sharada and Sarada, two different interpretations. Saram dadadi idi Sarada. Saram means the highest spiritual knowledge that makes you a spiritually enlightened person. You call it Saram, the essence, sublime spiritual knowledge. Saram dadadi. If you pray to God as the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother bestows on you spiritual wisdom that makes you a spiritually enlightened person. The other definition is Sharat Kale Pujida iti Sharada. Sharakala means autumn season. So it's during the autumn season that in many parts of India, this Divine Mother is invoked. The Mother's spiritual vibration, spiritual presence is all pervading. But that presence is invoked through prayers and meditation to be present in a visible symbol. That's the real meaning of image worship. Don't ever imagine that when you go to all these temples, the God is sitting there in different forms, standing, sitting, and so on, different postures. People who don't understand this, they think Hindu gods and God is Hanuman, be powerful. If somebody calls you, your face is like Hanuman, it won't be considered to be a compliment. So the point is, so you can find all these different manifestations of the divine. Each of these manifestations represent one approach to the divine. If you approach the divine as the giver of wisdom, as the giver of spiritual knowledge, then you approach the divine as Saraswati or Sarada. If you approach the divine for protection from problems and troubles, you approach the divine conceived as Kali. Like that, many masculine and feminine aspects of the divine were conceived in ancient Hindu tradition. So this puja itself is a great symbolism. You can find, to give an example, dhyanam, it consists of making your mind free from all and you're praying to the divine to be present on the visible symbol. I should say a few things about this. A picture, a photo, or an image. The image is not God or goddess, not the photo. The photo, again, was made by one of the professional photo frame people in the San Francisco, one of the shops here. And the picture, again, it is made of, it's printed paper, nothing else. The image also may be a stone or a piece of wood. But that's not what you're worshipping. That's a very important thing to remember. So, so this is often ridiculed by people who don't. Of course, our people also don't try to explain this. Every image is a symbol. For you to meditate, how do you meditate? God's or divine energy is omnipresent, all-pervading. By your meditation, by your prayer, you are praying to the divine to be manifest right there in front of you. It may be a sacred book, or a picture, or anything. And then that focus, that symbol is used as an instrument, as a focus for meditation. Why do you have to meditate? You have to take your mind away from all worldly empirical objects and direct that attention to the divine. The ultimate purpose is to meditate on the presence of the divine within you, within your own heart. But it's not so easy. So there's a middle path. What's the middle path? You turn your mind away from all external objects. You may have worked very hard, you may quarrel with your colleagues in the office. Whatever may be the experience you have gone through in your everyday activities, mind is full of these thoughts, impressions and memories. So mind should be brought back to something concrete as a symbol for focusing meditation. For that, an image, a book, something is made. And then eventually, you should take your mind away from that image and focus the mind on the divine that is present within you, which is beyond names and forms. Ultimately, the divine has no name and form. It transcends all possible names and forms and verbalizations. So how to meditate on that? We need some concrete symbols. So that's why in the puja you find dhyanam, avahana means you are invoking the presence of the divine from everywhere and focusing on the visible image in front of you. Then you offer to that divine. It's a guest. You are inviting the all-pervading divine energy to be present on the image or something in front of you. Then you treat that divine energy as a person, as an honored guest. So you find all these water, flowers, incense stick, all the light, dhuba, diba, padyam, margyam. These are all, which I'm going to details into those details. And eventually, you're praying to the same divine, please be present in my heart. So remember that absolute reality, consider divine mother, transcends all forms, all words, all verbalizations, all descriptions. And it is an all-pervading divine spirit, divine energy, present everywhere, present in everything. So that's why you begin with Dvaita worship. Eventually, you go beyond external worship and you feel the presence of the divine within you. And eventually, you should be able to feel the presence of the divine everywhere. Eventually, you realize the non-difference, the complete identity with the worshipper and the worshipped, between the person who is doing puja or worship and the divine mother whom you are worshipping. So you begin with external worship, then you go beyond external worship. That's why the greatest non-dualistic philosopher, Shankaracharya, the greatest saint, he was the one who told you the highest devotee is one, not somebody who goes to a place of worship every day, the one who feels the presence of the divine in everything and the presence of everyone in God. You should feel the presence of God or divine in everyone, and you should feel the presence of everyone in God. So, these are some of the underlying principles of puja. That's why yatra yatra manodehi dharayet achalam dhyaha snehat dveshat bhayat va api yadi tattat surupatam. So, mind takes the form of the object on which we meditate. And this is a very important principle in the concept of worshipping God as the divine. So, your mind will be influenced by the idea of God that you are worshipping. See, if your God is very cruel, absolutely uncompromising, with a heavy stick in his hands, ready to beat you if you don't obey, and give you reward, chocolate, or gods, or heaven when you agree, well, your idea of God is, and no offense to headmasters and old headmasters of the 19th century. No, it's not a dictator God. If you think of a God like that, then you also become eventually slightly cruel and monstrous. So on the other hand, if you think of God as the embodiment of compassion, like mother, that's why, this our subject is the feminine face of God. The feminine face of God is the face of an all-forgiving, all-compassionate, all-kind, all-knowing mother of yours. So what happens is, when you think of God as the mother, as a compassionate mother, then you also become compassionate, kind-hearted human beings. That's why, whatever may be your approach to God, that's why it's very interesting, yatra yatra manodehi dharayet achalam dhyaha snehat dveshat bhayat vapi yad tattat surupadam. You turn to God out of fear, or you turn to God out of love and love. like a mother, like a child approaching his or her mother. So if you think of God as an all-compassionate, as an all-kind, as all-knowing, all-forgiving mother, you also become forgiving, compassionate, humane, a good human being. That's why Shankaracharya begins his stotras, means his poetical classics, addressing Divine Mother, Ananda Lahari, Saundari Lahari, and so on. He begins by praying, as a devotee pray for material things. Then eventually the prayer takes a higher turn and ascent. Mother, you have given me all the learning, all the wealth, all that I needed. But please also give me the wisdom so that I will make proper use of what you have bestowed upon me. And I can resist the temptation to make improper use of my accomplishments, your blessings. So these are all some of the very important principles here. And there is something unique about the face of God as mother. So frequently it's called Bhukti Mukti Pradayini. I already referred to this earlier. When the divine is worshipped as Gayatri in the morning, Savitri in the midday, and Saraswati in the evening. All three dimensions, all three possibilities of spiritual evolution implied here. So bhukti means enjoyment. Mukti means liberation. So bhukti mukti pradayini. If you get bhukti alone, then you may become maybe an Epicurean, ultra-utilitarian person who thinks that the highest meaning of life is to make wealth and enjoy wealth. That's all, nothing else. That's why bhukti is not enough. Mukti is also needed. What is mukti? Mukti means liberation. When you are a billionaire, biggest job, everything is fine, and still mind goes after more wealth, more power. So you should be able to tell your own mind, enough. Now you can stop. That is wisdom. And that wisdom also is as important as wealth, power, everything. So either we become slaves to wealth and power if we don't have the wisdom to say no to ourselves, or we end up being able to make proper use of whatever we have achieved. And for that we need a desire for higher transcendental evolution, that is moksha, liberation, a desire for spiritual enlightenment. That's why there is only one supreme concept of Godhead in Hindu tradition, where you can pray to God. Suppose you don't have money, ask God as your own mother, give me money. Nothing wrong in it. Bhukti. So if you don't have a job, you need a job to live in this world. It's not a crime to pray to God for wealth. Absolutely not, no problem. But we should also pray for something higher. Bhukti. Bhukti is the wisdom, the ability to say, no, enough, I don't need any more. If you can't say that, if you cannot say no to your desires, then you become enslaved. What happens, you become the richest man in the world, you also become the sickest person in the world, at least mentally. That's what happens. That's why mother is often considered to be bhukti and mukti pradayini. That is, gives wisdom, but doesn't deny your requirements to live in this world. For that you need wealth, everything else. You can pray, everything. You don't have to be an ascetic to be a devotee. And this is a unique aspect of worshipping mother as the feminine. In all other areas, where you pray to other different aspects of Godhead in Hinduism, there is there's a greater insistence, emphasis given to asceticism, renunciation. Here also renunciation is there, but mother is compassionate. Mother doesn't deny the children's need to eat candy or chocolates if they need it. But mother also will give the wisdom so that child will be able to say to himself, well, enough. I don't need. That's a bhukti and mukti pradayini. The one who gives bhukti and mukti. Now remember, this is a very auspicious time. It's called Mahalaya. The new moon is called, Amavasya, because it is on that day the sun and moon come nearest to each other. It's called Surya Chandrama Sohoya Para Sannikasha Samava Amavasya Gobira Sutra. What it means is, when there is a junction, when the sun and moon come nearest to each other, and that is supposed to be a very auspicious occasion. That's the beginning of this important time of celebration, of worshipping God with a feminine, divine face. So, Uparyadha Bhavana, there are many important aspects to this, which I am not going to those details. And a few more things that I will say. Navaratri, this particular season is called Navaratri. Navaratram is called Navaratri. I mean, a period, an auspicious occasion of 9 nights or 9 days, both are rites, nights of praise. I mean, the whole period is spent in praising the divine. So, God is invoked, the all-pervading divine energy is invoked to be present from the subtle dimension to the gross dimension in front of us. Then we pray, we do offerings, we do sacred readings, we do meditation, and then eventually we ask the divine to go back to its own subtle form. So we have to remember, even behind the most visible, tangible forms of worship or external puja, there is the presence of Advaita concept. Advaita tells you, you can pray to God in a temple or a church or any place of worship. Absolutely fine. But remember, the divine or reality transcends, goes beyond sacred walls of concrete and mortar, whether temple or church or in place of worship. So that is the greatness of Advaita. Advaita accommodates, accepts, recognizes all other forms of worship. But Advaita eventually tells you that your goal should be to feel the presence of the divine outside the walls of the places of worship, temple or church, whatever it is. So every day, every minute can be an act of worship when we feel that the divine Mother is present in everyone, in everything. Certain occasions are conceived called utsava. I mean, that's a Sanskrit word. Certain occasion celebration when we dedicate a few days, in this case Navaratri, 9 days, worshipping divine as the universal feminine archetype, the all-pervading, the immanent spiritual reality, worshipped as all-compassionate, all-kind-hearted, all-knowing Mother of the universe. And that Mother gives you freedom to pray not only for spiritual enlightenment, but also for the fulfillment of your everyday needs. That's a unique aspect of worshipping God as Divine Mother. So I have tried to give a very, very short bird view of this very profound subject, which has got huge literature actually. So many poetical classics, Tantra books on Shakta, Shaiva, Vaishnava traditions, and more especially the great poetical classics of Shankaracharya like Ananda Lahari, Saundarya Lahari. And there is one interesting and very interesting poetical classic by Shankara. It is called Chadushashti Upajara Puja Stotram. So you may have seen the puja going on, We invite a senior Swami of California, Swami Tattwamananda will come and do puja on 27th next week. So he'll be doing puja. That puja is, at the most, it may be 10 aspects. Shankaracharya wrote a poetic classic. In the poetry, he describes 64 types of Chadu Shashti Upajara Puja Stotram, a poetical classic in which it describes 64 aspects of worship. So it begins like this: Usasi Magada Mangala Jai. Mother, it's early morning, you get up. So mother need not be asked to get up. The divine energy present everywhere. That divine energy is invoked to be present. Adikribadra Kadaksha Nirikshanaihi Jagadidam Jagadamba Sukhi Guru. Oh mother, you look at the whole humanity with the eyes of compassion and bless this world. This is how it begins. So this is something very interesting. I believe that if we can accept and understand the feminine divinity of God and understand it, because we know that involves the idea of compassion, kindness, all the sublime feelings of a human being. You know, it is mother who is the embodiment of all that is sublime, all that is spiritual, all that is intimate in the human relationship. So I tried to give a very, very brief bird view description of this concept. So thank you. Namaste. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.
Ya Chandi Madhukaita Bhadi Daita Dalani Ya Mahishon Mulini Ya Dhumre Kshana Chanda Munda Mathani Ya Rakta Bija Ashani Shakti Shumbani Shumba Daita Dalani Ya Siddhidatri Para Mahadevi Navakoti Murti Sahitama Patu Visheshwari Patu Visheshwari. Namo Chundi, Namo Chundi, Namo Chundi, Namo Chundi, নমো চণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী জাগো রক্ত বীজনি কৃন্তিনি জাগো মহিষাসুরভি মর্দিনী জাগো রক্ত বীজনি কৃন্তিনি জাগো মহিষাসুরভি মর্দিনী উঠে শঙ্খ মন্দ্রে অভ্র বক্ষ শঙ্কা শননে চণ্ডী শঙ্কা শননে চণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী তব খর্গ শক্তি কৃত কৃতান্ত শত্রু সাতন চণ্ডী শত্রু সাতন তন্দ্রী নাশ সিংহ বাহিনী রণহুঙ্কার ইন্দ্রাণী যমুতন্দ্রী ইন্দ্রাণী যমুতন্দ্রী নমো চণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী তুমি রণক দণ্ড টঙ্কারে হানো খর কলম্ব জলে সব রথ তুরঙ্গ ছিন্ন ছিন্ন সুতীক্ষ্ণ করওয়ালে নাচ ধূম্র নেত্র দনুজ মুন্ড চক্রপাতনে খণ্ডী তব তাতা থই প্রলয় ঋত তাতা থই প্রলয় ঋত ধ্বংসে বাঁধন গণ্ডী ধ্বংসে বাঁধন গণ্ডী নমো চণ্ডী 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 নমো চণ্ডী
So there will be no lecture next Sunday because of the puja celebration on the Saturday. And then on Sunday evenings, there is an online class at 6 p.m. on the foundational text of Indian philosophy. The Zoom and YouTube links are available on our website homepage as well as in the monthly email bulletin. It's a program on Indian philosophy sponsored by the Stanford Hindu Students Association. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. in this auditorium. There will be no Friday evening class this Friday because of Saturday's special program. The class will resume on October 3rd. So please remember, we have an online class at 6 p.m. It's an online class on the foundation text of Indian philosophy. It's been going on for quite a long time now. It is sponsored by the Stanford Hindu Students Association. The Zoom and YouTube links are available on our website homepage as well as in the monthly email bulletin. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.